according to a National Institute of Mental Health study, 72% of entrepreneurs are directly or indirectly impacted by mental health issues compared to only 48% of non-entrepreneurs. At a time when India has recognized the significance of mental health, it's a good time to start talking about these things. So we have Yamini Negi with us. Hello Yamini, thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you, Anushruti, for having me here.
So Yamini, can you tell us about yourself and what is RichPsych and what kind of work it do?
So I am a mental health professional and an advocate of evidence-based practice, which means to say I like to work both in academia as well as field. So I want to contribute in the social sector, health sector, and also academics. So I try to draw a balance between these three sectors. I am a co-founder and CEO of RichPsych, which is a telemental health platform. The basic logic behind the whole platform is to get under one umbrella all the good counselors and therapists from India and around the world, and make them or have a mechanism whereby they can offer their services at a very affordable price, because therapy is expensive and that's one of the reasons people avoid it.
So as an advocate of well-being and mental health, what common misconceptions are there about mental health being?
When we talk about well-being, we have a, say, I ask you, what is well-being? And you picture something, right? Most often it is a healthy body that comes to mind, right? And that's how we also take it. So well-being is equal to a good physical body or physical well-being. And that's a very stereotypical way of seeing things. And maybe media has fed that to us. So we see celebrities and there is a nice shoveled body, six packs, things like that, and that's well-being. But then what's often missing, and that's what your question is about, is the mental part of it, because that's not visible. So what's not visible, we don't need to pay attention to it. And that's the misconception about well-being, first of all. In the recent past, especially during lockdowns, how many people attempted or committed suicide. And if you just see their recent posts on social media, they look perfectly fine. They even have the best bodies they can have, and their health regimes are perfect, right? But then what went missing was the mental part of it. And I'd only say, do not judge the book by its cover. So that's the misconception that prevails, that we tend to just see the physical aspect of well-being.
So right. So you said, there are many misconceptions. So why mental health plays a prominent role when it comes to entrepreneurs and their journey?
In my experience, many people choose entrepreneurship or having their own startups because they're struggling with there's some sort of struggle with their present work, and it can stem from maybe stress, they are anxious, there's depression. So even there's a research on this, that most people choose to become entrepreneurs, leaving a job and then becoming an entrepreneur because they are struggling. So in the beginning, this struggle, this anxiety or this sadness or this distress helps you, as a driving force. So it's beneficial in the beginning. But because we never address it, the reason for it is never addressed. So as and when you settle down as an entrepreneur, okay, so now things are working, it's the operational stage and things like that, then it would again start seeping in. And therefore, entrepreneurs, it's very essential that for them, mental health and well-being occupies the center stage, because they got to run their lives in a balanced way, and then only, that would result in a balanced business.
And why do you think there is a stigma associated with mental health, and what role does our culture play in this stigma? And now government is also like acknowledged this, that it's a critical issue.
Definition of health by WHO encompasses both physical and mental well-being. Now, why is this stigma? Because first of all, we can't see the mental health part, right? Second, I believe it's, especially in Indian context, I think people are afraid to be perceived as weak. So again, going back to my example, somebody posts a very nice picture on social media with a very toned body, but they would not like to accept that they are struggling, because that would give a perception of weakness, right? So they won't get the number of likes they desire on their picture, right? And another, in my experience, what I have found out, people are very, very concerned about being tagged crazy. That's what we say. Mental health is equal to craziness, but that's not the case, and hence the stigma. And there are cultural differences as well, like you said.
Right.
So I was in the UK. I was in the UK for some time, and then I found I was a student. So how open people are now. Gradually, they have started accepting all of these things. And one of my classmates, how frankly she told her professor that I have social anxiety. On the other hand, in India, we can't even speak about depression. We don't even know actually what depression, anxiety, or stress look like. These are just words because they float on media or Google or things like that. But we have very less sensitizing campaigns. And I think that's one of the practical cultural differences, is awareness and lack of sensitization, which I'm very happy, like you mentioned, that government has started putting in efforts into this field. And another very interesting thing, the cultural difference I found is, this is my personal observation, people attach this struggle many a times with paranormal things. So instead of seeking help or going to a therapist or a mental health professional, they'd rather go to some Babaji and get the problem fixed.
So what do you want women entrepreneurs to know about being healthy with, like, mentally? As you know, women are treated very differently in a startup world.
So one of the things I'd like to highlight here is work-life balance is very important for us ladies. I don't need to say why. We all know, there are 1,000 other things we have to take care of. So one of the very key factors that I personally believe in or practice is self-leadership. So entrepreneurs are leaders of their organization, and self-leadership is basically leading your life first. Forget about your organization, your team, things like that. Taking charge of your life where you are. And it also encompasses taking charge of your physical health, taking charge of your mental health, taking charge of things around you. Oftentimes we tend to neglect them, and it's like everything is runny, flowy, no compactness. And that's where women struggle a lot. So if you're irritated on a Shri, for example, you can't keep your team happy. You would invariably pass on that irritability to your team, consciously or unconsciously. So yes, taking charge of your personal life is one of the important things, I believe. And then self-care. This is my personal favorites, because I believe whatever time you get, it can be a Saturday or a Sunday, pamper yourself with your children, play with your dogs, but have that 4 to 5 hours in a week minimum. That's minimum I'm talking about. And just be yourself, do what you like. And also, one important thing is, which we ladies tend to ignore, is hormones. So don't just think that things are wrong. Sometimes it's not you who are wrong. It's the hormones doing the job, especially post and premenstrual premenses, right? So that's very important thing to know as well. And this one, I have observed around me. We women should not compare. at all. But I think as entrepreneurs, again, self-management, we should be very sorted and refrain from any kind of comparison that would help us many folds. You are best the way you are, and just be yourself.
So do you have any tips for entrepreneurs dealing with such issues?
So what happens is stress, depression, anxiety, be it anything. We all have it sometime, someday. But there's something known as clinical, okay, which makes it like very difficult to manage, and non-clinical, which you are anyhow doing your rest of the activities. And one has to persistently see if my non-clinical depression or my non-clinical anxiety or my non-clinical stress is it turning into something clinical. So first and foremost, like I said, gauge the length. For how long have you been here? Is just past 2 days or is past 2 months? You would be the better judge. Then accept. I always emphasize that instead of brushing things under the carpet, which most of us do, we should proactively address it before this mole, making the small thing becomes a very large mountain. And then it's very difficult to even cure it. So my only, summarized advice would be, all the entrepreneurs, whenever you are distressed or facing any kind of emotional upheaval, please look for the reason why, accept it, and address it right then and there. Don't consider therapy as some kind of a taboo or practice that should not be not a common practice, but in fact it is continuously becoming a common practice, and people are very acceptable of therapy now. So it's better that you address the issue right when it is very small than later when things are totally out of hand.
One of the biggest challenges entrepreneurs face is their mental health, which they might not know about. So the best solution is to ask for help, reach out to people who can support you, and by connecting with them, you will be improving their mental health and your own too. So thank you, Yamini, for such an insightful discussion. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Anushriti. Likewise. Yeah.